Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Good morning and welcome to Hoop City with Paul Sir, along with the great Josh Fenwick. Josh, it's good to have you here today.
It's good to be here, Paul. Happy to see you again.
Well, it's great to see you too. I'm glad you're feeling better. Last week you were just coming out of a bout with whatever the alien of the week was that was floating around and getting into folks' systems. So it's good to see you feeling great again.
Yeah, feeling good and still crushing tea left and right. So
good man, taking care of yourself. It's going to be a great show today. We're going to switch things up in terms of the order and how we do things. Instead of in the second hour when we generally do our deep dive segment. And for those who are first-time listeners or haven't heard us that much, the deep dive really is where we go into the weeds on the sport of basketball. Oftentimes I feel, and this is on a personal level, I feel unsatisfied, dissatisfied, Josh. I'm not sure I think it's dissatisfied is the proper use of the word, but I get frustrated at the fact that we really don't get into the weeds, into the discussion of what the nuances might be of a particular team, of a particular game, particular player, whatever it might be. But I'm really excited about our guest today. We've had Pat Boylan on many, many times. Pat is the radio play-by-play voice, longtime radio play-by-play voice of the Indiana Pacers and the WNBA's Caitlin Clark-led Indiana Fever. So we're able to talk both about not just the Pacers, but the NBA in general. And remember with the Pacers, I mean, they're 15-45. It's not like we're looking at them as a way to gauge the playoffs coming up. But what we're looking at is a team that got unexpectedly, surprisingly, to Game 7 in the NBA Finals last year. Of course, their great point guard, Tyrese Halliburton, went down in Game 6 with an Achilles rupture. He's rehabbing on his way back. They just picked up a great center from Chicago in Zubac. He'll be ready for next year. And all things considered, they may end up with a top 4 or 5 pick in a very deep draft this year. So they might be long-suffering this year. But Pat really goes into what it's like in Indianapolis right now. But also we talk, of course, about the NBA and the WNBA negotiations, which right now still are not resolved, pose a bit of a threat to the start of the season and maybe to the season itself if things go off the rail. But it'll be a great conversation. Then in the second hour, our community champion is my son, Steve Sir. Steve's a local basketball legend, 2 high school championships at Ross Shepherd before he went down for his grade 12 years at Cretin-Derham Hall High School in St. Paul, still holds the 3-point record for a season. And I think, Josh, this is what's interesting. Steve's numbers in terms of 3 points made in his 1 year at Cretin-Derham Hall are 44 more than the second place guy all these years later, 25 years later. So, I mean, Steve at an era when the three wasn't shot as much as it is today was really lighting it up. Also holds the NCAA record for 3-point percentage in a career for players who made over 300 3-pointers in their Division I career. Is now presently the national team coach for the country of Mongolia, a rising 3x3 powerhouse. Steve's been Canada's number 1 3x3 player for a long time. And so we're going to talk about Steve. He's getting ready to head back over to Mongolia to coach their national teams. We'll talk 3x3, but we'll also talk the state of college basketball, the changes going on, the drafts, the NBA, etc. So, Josh, why don't we start out with our poll question today? I kind of like this question.
Yeah. So, poll question today is: who would you like to start your team with? Victor Wembanyama, Con Knipple, Cooper Flag, or Anthony Edwards? You can vote on that on our Twitter at Hoop City Show on X, the Everything app. It's all happening on X.
All happening on X. And what I like about this question is the variety of players, because you've got the two outstanding rookies, Cooper Flag, who everybody thought was going to be a generational player, and the trend certainly was heading in that direction prior to his injury, but he should be back, I guess, relatively soon. Surprising success of Con Knipple, who, if you had to pick today, he probably would be the rookie of the year. Incredible year. Just broke the three-pointers made for a rookie already with many, many games to go. Having an outstanding year, and is one of the major reasons why the Charlotte Hornets, a doormat of an NBA franchise, not only are they relevant, they're winning a lot of games and they're beating a lot of good teams, not just the weak sisters in the league, but they're beating a lot of good teams as well. So Con Knipple's interesting. And I think, has the sizzle. He has the appeal factor, the eye appeal factor. He's a spectacular player, a spectacular talent, a bit on the volatile side, still rounding out in terms of his maturity in Minnesota, but really probably the most dynamic player, I would say, in the league, in a league filled with dynamic players. And then, of course, Victor Wembanyama. 7'5", all of those skills, can spot up from three, and not just a three, a deep three, in transition back to the basket game. And he primarily is responsible for the San Antonio Spurs being a genuine title contender this year. So on one hand, Josh, I think the obvious pick is Wemby, obviously. But when you look at the skill sets of the other three players, can you take what they bring and their versatility, or do you go with Wembanyama as just the obvious one? Because 7'5", athletic, can handle the ball, can shoot the three, like I mentioned. But I think it's a bit of I think it's an interesting conversation. Who would you pick?
Yeah, for me, I'm taking the obvious one. I'm taking Victor Wembanyama, and I love the other guy. Anthony Edwards is close. This is a guy who's gone to 2 Western Conference Finals and has been the 1-1 for sure. But we're talking about an alien right now. That's the comparison, is a guy who can literally do it all for you. And so, to me, Ant's still pretty young, but Wemby is younger, and also he competes at everything. He's the guy that said, I'm competing at the All-Star game. I don't care about everyone else, but I'm playing hard. And so I think that's a guy that you want on your team. Not saying that Ant isn't that guy, because I think he's also just a psycho competitor, but it's hard to pass up on the 7'4" guy who can bang home 3-pointers.
He may have single-handedly transformed the All-Star game back into relevance because of his competitive nature and the way that carried over, not just to his teammates on the international team, but also to the American players who went out there with, very, very focused in the 2 games that they played against each other. And they competed hard as well, because they didn't want Wemby, who was out there battling, to take that away from them. So I agree with you. Wemby is just so hard to argue with. I do think, though, for me, being the devil's advocate here, I would look at Cooper Flag and say, I might go with Flag because of his versatility. He can guard all 5 positions. And this is a 19-year-old. This is a guy who, by the time he's done, really could transform and redefine how good a player can be in all aspects of the game. Because I think one of the areas of his game, Josh, that is often overlooked is his defense. And he passes the ball extremely well, really well. he has a lot of LeBron in him in terms of making the right pass at the right time. But he has and this may sound controversial because you're talking about the guy who scored more points by a long shot than anybody else in LeBron James. And we all know how great he is. But I think Cooper Flagg is potentially going to be a better all-around player because I think he's a more versatile scorer than LeBron James is. And with all due respect to LeBron, Cooper's going to shoot the three better than LeBron. He can put it on the deck, both hands really well as LeBron. He will become as good as LeBron. But the nuance to his game, I think, is really special. And I think he has a chance to be an NBA all-defensive player as well. So please text in your answer. We're looking forward to seeing what you think. I'm guessing it'll heavily favor Wemby, but I'm hoping some other people might consider taking an alternative way to go. By the way, you can text us as 833-401-1440, 833-401-1440. If you have any comments, questions, anything you'd like to hear talked about on the show today. So, like I said, we have Pat Boylan coming up in the second segment today, Steve at the top of the hour. So I'm going to do a game summary, and I'm going to get your opinion on some of these. The other night, Josh, you've been really busy, and I'm assuming you're watching hockey. But I watched Houston and Orlando play. Kevin Durant had 40 points. He moved into sixth place all time in terms of total points in the highest stratosphere of company with, of course, LeBron, Kareem, Malone, Jordan, and Kobe, I think, are the five in front of him. And Durant looked great. And this is what's surprising to me, Josh. Houston, who I think a lot of people were starting to give up on because of the problems that they've had with Van Fleet being out at point guard, not being able to really address that comfortably through the early part of the season. But what was making them as tough as they were was the rebounding prowess of Steven Adams, the New Zealander, who was absolutely shattering records on offensive rebounds and keeping the ball alive, grabbing offensive rebounds, kicking them out for threes. And their offensive rebound rate was at historic levels, but he unfortunately is out for the season. But now they seem to be rounding themselves back into shape. Sengun in the center is playing really, really well. But it's been the emergence of two players, Amen Thompson, who's a phenomenal defender, one of the great athletes, he and his twin brother in Detroit, two of the great athletes in a very athletic league. But it's also been the emergence of Reed Shepherd as a point guard. For people who don't know who Reed Shepherd is, probably 6'1", from Kentucky, but can really shoot the ball. Coach's son, shows up in how he plays, but he is becoming more and more consistent. And the other night in their victory over Orlando in Orlando, Shepherd had 28. A lot of 20-point games, a lot of 15 to 20-point games. Ball handling, low turnovers, high assist rates. But he has really emerged. What are your thoughts on Houston, Josh?
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the emergence of Reed Shepherd. I think that was the big question coming into the season, especially with Fred VanVleet going out. I remember having the conversation of, okay, well, Reed Shepherd's their point guard now. Like really? Like, this is the guy that they have? And it was really the only choice that they had. And he's really come into his own recently. I think I still have some issues on the rebounding front because Steven Adams, it's not just historically, he wasn't just like historically good this year. He's basically been historically good his entire career.
Absolutely.
Right? And so
you don't replace that.
Yeah. And so that's incredibly difficult to replace, especially because rebounding is such an important part of the game. And the only other thing that I have problems with Houston with is their fourth quarters, where they're very overly reliant on Kevin Durant.
Absolutely.
They basically just stop and go, all right, well, Kevin, this is what we got you for. Please go out and help us win. We're in the weeds here. This is all you now. So they need to find a more like team oriented way to finish out games. And Ime Udoka is a very good coach. He should be able to figure this out. So, but other than that, like they're a really, really good team. There's a reason they were the second seed last year. But yeah, like would I say they're competing for a championship or anything? No. I just don't see them in that level of competitor right now because the top end of the West is so good.
Well stated, and I would agree with you to a large extent. Here's the one thing that is changing, though, that I think is really interesting. Kevin Durant really buys into Reed Shepherd. He really likes what Shepherd brings to this team, and when you get that kind of endorsement from KD, and I think what's starting to happen is KD is willing to pass out of pressure to Shepherd because he trusts Shepherd's ability to shoot the ball so well. And I think that adds a dimension. You though made the key point. Without Adams, and it was real interesting watching Şengün and Adams playing together because you got two bigs out there, which of course really bucks the trend in the NBA. But, trends are made to be broken. So they miss Adams, but the emergence of Shepherd, solidifying some of the other players, and KD right now he's at a really good place. He looks very fluid, very smooth. He still can get pretty much any shot he wants anytime he wants, unless people are running two at him. And that's where I go to my point. And to your point, the fact that he trusts Shepherd, now you can see that he's looking for Shepherd. So it's going to be interesting. You made a great point, though, about hanging on to the ball too long in the fourth quarter. And that'll segue into my next game that I'll focus on, and that was the Wolves and the Clippers the other night. The Clippers are a fun story because I continually joke about, can you name three players on the Clippers that aren't Kawhi Leonard? And it's really hard. But the other night, the Clippers gave the Wolves everything that they could handle. And in the fourth quarter, Anthony Edwards put on a show, including the shot that solidified the win. Deep in the corner, two guys hanging all over him, fading away, nails the bottom of the net. And here's my problem. And this is, I look forward to your opinion on this, Josh. I love Ant, but I don't love how Minnesota plays yet because he is like Luka used to be. Luka actually shares the ball more than Ant does now, I think. Ant is taking 20, 22 seconds of dribbling the basketball with everybody else standing around. And he's such a spectacular athlete that he can hit a shot like he hit the other night. But the problem will be when you get to the playoffs, that's all going to change. And he's going to have to become less of a ball-dominant guard and more of a sharing the ball and being more strategic in how he attacks. And I think when we had Alan Horton, the play-by-play voice of the Timberwolves, on recently, he indicated that concern as well. What are your thoughts on that? Like, Ant is spectacular, no doubt about it. But you can't have a one-man band all the time in the fourth quarter, to your point about Durant, without a player willing to share the ball. Right now, I don't see Ant's willingness to share the ball in clutch situations.
Yeah, there's a reason Kobe Bryant didn't. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a reason that Kobe Bryant didn't win championships without Derek Fisher. I know, like, Pau Gasol and Shaquille O'Neal were very important pieces or obviously like the most important pieces to his success. But Derek Fisher was also on all the teams for all 5 of Kobe's rings, I believe. And that was a ball sharing guard because Kobe didn't do it. This is a guy that averaged 25, 5, and 5 for his career. Just with the way that the NBA is now, everyone's so skilled. Everyone's able to make these shots. Not everyone, but like
more people are making a wider variety of shots.
More people are able to make the shots skill-wise. It's whether or not they're mentally able to do it. But like, there's a reason that, like Jordan passed the ball to Paxson, and he passed the ball to Kerr, and Derek Fisher was able to get the ball in places to people, and Meta World Peace or Meta World Artest or whatever his name is now made shots in big moments. It's because you have to be willing to trust the guys that you're going to war with to win. And once Ant figures that out, we're not going to be talking about him being a 2-time conference finalist. We're going to talk about him being a finalist and being in the biggest moments of the biggest moments, because he'll trust guys like Bones Highland, not just Julius Randle.
Well, and Randall's been struggling of late. McDaniels has really come on and is playing extremely well. Naz Reid continues to be solid coming off the bench. Strong case to be made for sixth man of the year. I think your points are well taken. Once there's addition by subtraction, take fewer shots, get the ball into your teammates' hands who can score, and that's going to make it easier for you to score in certain situations too, because then the team knows you're looking for open players. That makes you a better team. Before we go to break, I do want to touch on the Nuggets and Thunder last night, because I think I was real excited about this game because and even though it wasn't on TV, I was following it on social media. By the way, I have a gripe about our sports networks, and they're not reading the room with 10 channels between Sportsnet and TSN. Last weekend, they didn't have Duke, Michigan on. They didn't have Iowa State on with BYU. They didn't. And then last night, they don't have the Nuggets and the Thunder on. And the shows they had on, they weren't even NHL hockey games. They were just some terrible, terrible shows. But I don't get that. I'm grateful for the fact that we get more NBA and NCAA basketball in Canada. It's still just haphazard without rhythm, and talk about a game that should have been on. But anyway, went to overtime. Return of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, had 36. Jokic was 9 for 25. Still had 14 and 13 for rebounds and assists. Jamal Murray was the better Canadian last night. He had 39. Wasn't as efficient as Shai with his shooting percentage, but he had a marvelous game. I think we saw that the Nuggets can compete with a healthy, because the Thunder had everybody back last night, and the Nuggets, with the exception, who's the forward that's not healthy right now? Aaron Gordon, and who's a big help and a big key instrumental piece. But I think we saw a precursor to what's going to be a very hard-fought Western Conference NBA playoff run. It's going to be so much fun, because Jokic isn't going to have a lot of 9 for 25 nights. He's still coming back and finding his rhythm. But for the Nuggets to go to OKC, take them to overtime, you see the two relatively healthy teams battling with each other, that bodes well for what will be a spectacular NBA playoffs this year. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, over the next two segments, we're going to go into the deep dive with our good friend Pat Boylan, the play-by-play voice of the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever. You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick, on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. Built for real-life confidence. Visit Subaru.ca.
When you're driving snow, Toro and the Lawnmower Hospital have you covered. Toro's gas or battery-powered single-stage power-clear snowblowers make it easy to clear right down to the concrete with incredible Toro-powered Propel technology. Face the next snow day without fear, thanks to Toro and the Lawnmower Hospital. Visit lawnmowerhospital.com.
The Lawnmower Hospital. Some skate performance with precision meets fashion.
Take your skating to the next level with Aligned Custom Skate Performance in Sherwood Park. We make your skates feel like an extension of you. From kids lacing up for the first time to beer league warriors to elite level pros, we fit every skater with precision and care. Only a duster goes straight from off the shelf to on the ice. Our expert alignment process ensures the perfect fit, eliminating pressure points and maximizing your blade's performance. Aligned Custom Skate gives you the edge where it matters most, on the ice. Stop being the team grocery stick and visit AlignedSkate.com today. Whether it's a full custom fitting or professional sharpening, we've got you covered. So don't just skate, skate aligned. Book your appointment today and feel the difference. Discover why we're trusted by hockey pros and podium champions. Help us cure the bender in your life. Once again, visit AlignedSkate.com to get started.
Like custom skate performance with precision meets fashion.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 14.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome to the Hoop City Deep Dive with Pat Boylan, the voice of the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever. I love to welcome Pat back. I'm always excited when Pat can join us. Pat, how are you today?
Doing well. It's been a little while, so it's good to be back and chatting with you, Paul.
Likewise. Rough night last night for the Pacers, but I'll tell you what, Pat. I looked at the roster that the Pacers put on the court, and there's there's a few teams in this situation because of a variety of factors, primarily injuries. But I sometimes think an interesting game show right now would be who's on the Pacers, who's on the Clippers. Like, name 3 Pacers. You guys really have been hit hard, but how would you're 15-45, but the feeling I get, Pat, when I watch the Pacers play is they're playing hard. That's number one. I get a feeling from the outside looking in that the Pacer crowds are still supportive, and that it seems to come through. And I'm curious about this. Is just wait. We're going to be back next year. Is there some of that, or is that the overall mentality of the Pacer fans, team, organization? Where are the Pacers at?
Yeah, I think you've mostly hit the nail on the head there. In fact, I was going to start this conversation before you even brought it up. We in Indiana, we like to think we've got a pretty high IQ level of basketball fan. We think a lot of basketball's roots come from this area of the country and of the world, and because of that, in part because of that, but I think everybody here understands what's going on, and it's amazing, Paul. We just came off of a game on Thursday against the Charlotte Hornets, who are actually, to their credit, starting to generate some real buzz, and they've got some players that people might come out to see. But in general, you would just say the Charlotte Hornets on a Thursday night, which, by the way, is the third of 4 straight at home. Sometimes it can be tough to get people in the building when you play 4 straight home games, because families say, okay, the Pacers are in town for a week and a half. I'll go to one of those games, right? How many are going to all 4? And yet Thursday night was close to a sellout. And that's been the norm this year. And I think some of that is just the imagination that last year's team captured of the city. But also, I think it's because people understand what's happening here and are, frankly, see the bigger picture, which is last year, I would argue, and I think most people would probably agree, the best year in the NBA franchise history of the Indiana Pacers. Now, they've had maybe more talented teams, or teams that going into the playoffs had a better chance of winning a championship. They've had a 60-win team before. But when you just look at a game away from the NBA of an NBA championship, that has never happened before. The closest the Pacers had ever previously gotten was in 2000 when they lost to the Lakers 4-2. That was the beginning of the Kobe and Shaq dynasty. So the closest Pacers fans have ever come to tasting that NBA championship was last year. You can make a good case it was the best year in NBA franchise history. Depending on how this year goes, record-wise, it's going to be one of the very worst. And yet, look, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say the crowd level and interest and engagement equals what it did last year. It, of course, doesn't. That would be unrealistic. But I've just really been amazed at how close it's been. It has not been a significant drop-off. And even though you might go from a win away from an NBA championship to the following year winning low 20s games, we'll see where they end up, it has the ability to be, I think this is going to be a period of time when you go back and look at it 20, 30 years from now. That's fascinating because where do the Pacers go from here is such an interesting question. Tyrese Halliburton will be back, hopefully close to, if not 100%. But the potential for this franchise to add Ivica Zubac at the trade deadline, and then also possibly get a top 4 pick and what appears like a loaded draft class. The last season for the Pacers could have been their best in franchise history, but there's a world, in my opinion, where this year, the challenges of this year and all the injuries of this year could actually bring about the type of movement that eventually puts this franchise over the top. I truly believe that. If you had a scenario where you brought in one of these top prospects into this team and Ivica Zubac, an upgrade at center, I mean, that's the type of scenario that I think gives goosebumps to Pacers fans. So it's this fascinating dynamic of just the horror and the tragic nature of Tyrese Halliburton's Achilles potentially costs you a championship. This year has been no fun from a wins and loss and injury perspective, but I think most fans look at it and say, well, you were able to get Ivica Zubac because of this year, because the big thing that got that trade moving was the potential for the Clippers to get a high draft pick, that if the Pacers win 40 games this year, that trade probably doesn't happen, but also the potential to get one of these top players in the draft. And what that could mean could be equally, if not even maybe more impactful than, what last season was, if they're able to turn that into, future playoff wins. So I really think that this is one of the most interesting times in the history of this franchise, and it'll be fascinating when we're talking in 5 years, 10 years to see what came of all of this, because I think it has the potential to be kind of the impetus of something really special here, but we'll have to see.
Very well put. And it's interesting how the negative is actually is potentially a positive, and not just in a little way, but in a very big way. Zubac, as you mentioned, huge upgrade over Turner. Nothing against Miles. He gave a lot of years to your franchise, but the potential for Zubac to be that kind of post that you've been looking for a long time is great. Tyrese, of course, being back. But I'd like to jump over to the rookie potential, because I think we all had high expectations of the rookie class this year that's come into the NBA, and you faced off, you being the Pacers, just phased off against Con Kneppel, who I think, as to say he's exceeded expectations, Pat, would be a gross understatement for what this young man has done. But to see rookies come into the year, and it's not just, of course, Con, it's also Cooper Flagg and Harper and Derek Queen. You see these guys coming in, and they're young and NBA ready, and they're absolutely making major contributions and impacts to their team. And now the rookie class coming up in the next draft, some people will go as far as saying, and this, of course, is a hot take and remains to be seen, but this could be one of the, if not the best draft class ever, to be in that top 4 or 5. Wow. For Indiana, you could get one heck of an impact player.
No question. It's funny that you bring that up, because the Pacers have played, unfortunately, without Cooper Flagg, but they played Dallas on Sunday. Cooper Flagg, of course, they're the number 1 pick. VJ Edgecombe, the number 3 pick. They played on Tuesday against Philadelphia. Con Kneppel, the 4 pick, who might end up being rookie of the year with Charlotte on Thursday. So they faced a lot of these guys recently, and Harper's great. Queen is great. It's fascinating, because you will hear people say, I will never pretend to be a draft expert. I try to follow these kids, especially if the Pacers are looking like they might draft high. I try to follow them when I can throughout the college season, so I have some awareness of who they are, their games, some of their background. But at the end of the day, if I'm turning the TV on a night where, I'm not broadcasting and I'm watching sports, it's still the NBA that pops on the TV. So I can't sit here and tell you if this is the greatest draft class of all time or not. I have no idea, but I have read and I have heard the same things as you have. And one of my initial thoughts of that is, I think it would be great if the top 4 this upcoming draft class is as good as the top 4 from the class that just happened, because I think you've got 4 all-stars in that top 4 right there. I think Edgecombe's going to be an all-star. Harper looks really, really good. And then Flagg and Kneppel have been, kind of the flag bearers of that draft class. And as you noted, Queen in New Orleans, while that trade they made might have been foolish, the draft selection that they got out of it to get Derek Queen was certainly a really, really job well done. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this class. I don't speak for the Pacers front office ever, and I don't speak for them on this trade. I do think that the Zubac trade is fascinating, because the way it's laid out, for those who don't know, who might be listening, the Pacers keep their pick if it's top 4, and 5 through 9, it goes to the Clippers. And if they end up 5 through 9, the Clippers get the pick. If it ends up 1 through 4, the Pacers get the pick. And then there's a future 2031 pick that hinges on whether or not that happens. To me, you see the Pacers being willing to make that move. To me, it says they've looked at 5 through 9 and they don't see anybody that is as impactful as Zubats. Now, some of that, if you look at the mock drafts, there are a lot of point guards in that range. I'm not going to break news on your show here to say the Pacers are not looking to draft a point guard, or at least looking to draft a point guard that will start at point guard. I mean, that's just not something that they're trying to do. They've got one that nearly, took them to a championship last year. So I think that's part of it too. I think there's probably a lot of point guards in the 5 through 9 range that allow the Pacers to say, okay, well, if that pick fell 5 to 9 anyway, would you trade the 6th pick and a 2029 pick for Zubats? I'm answering that yes. So I think the Pacers have put themselves in a great spot, because if they don't get draft lottery luck, then they've already cashed that pick in for a borderline all-star center. And if they do get draft lottery luck, then they potentially get one of these top 4 guys in what appears to be a loaded class and get Zubats. It's the have your cake and eat it too scenario. And I will tell you, the fans here are very aware of what's going on. And I think when draft lottery day comes around, this will be as nervous of a city as anywhere in the country, or maybe anywhere in the world for one day.
Excited in a nervous way, because to have this kind of rich, deep class of what looks like NBA ready talent is pretty exciting. And you laid the future out really clearly. And of course, we know the basketball gods are cruel with injuries. Nobody knows that better than Indiana does after last year. But now to have the kind of hopefulness around this class, adding to Tyrese's return, seeing Zubac in a Pacer uniform, wow, does that ever bode well and make next year, the carryover to next year, really, really exciting? I'm talking with Pat Boylan, voice of the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever, here on the Deep Dive on Hoop City with Paul Sir. We had a bunch of trades recently. Boston picked up another European center in Vucevic. Detroit tried to prop up its shooting, one of the weaker areas of what's been an unbelievable season. If you had to pick from the trades in the Eastern Conference, who would you say this year has come out the best and positions them to better their playoff possibilities?
Wow, that's a really good question. I guess I haven't thought of it necessarily from that prism. I'm obviously a little bit, biased to what the Pacers have done. I really think, the move for Zubac, as you were talking about, is the type of deal that the franchise really needed. Turner was a really good center for many years, but Zubac just has some qualities and some capabilities about him that I think are perfect for what this team is looking for and ultimately what it needs in the future. They gave up a lot for it, but if Zubac is the right kind of guy, again, biased broadcaster here, I think it has the potential to be the type of move that the Pacers are in such a fascinating spot, because they last year were a win away from a championship. The year before, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, but in the regular seasons of those years, they weren't necessarily viewed as contenders. I think it's the type of move, regardless of what happens with the pick, if Tyrese Halliburton can come back close.
This is Paul Sir, live from Sports 1440. The interview that I have with Pat Boylan was recorded yesterday, and we're having some technical difficulty. The computer just crashed. So Pat will be back for the second part of our deep dive when we get a chance to go to break. Pat, Josh is trying to deal with the technical aspects of what went wrong. Couple of things that we're going to talk about when Steve Sir comes in today, along with 3x3 and the start of the international season. We're going to talk about the sport of 3x3, which will be going into its third Olympic cycle. But the growth of the sport globally has required that events expand, that more and more countries and teams get involved, that more and more tournaments take place around the world. And that season literally is getting started today. And it's increased in size, increased investment, and also increased in terms of global exposure with tens and tens of millions of views literally every weekend.
Good news. We're so back. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. We're back. All right. Then I won't wax philosophic on 3x3 until Steve comes in. Josh, should we go to break right now and then continue when we'll come back? Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, my conversation with Pat Boylan will continue on the deep dive. You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick on Sports 1440.
No fluff, no fillers, just pure entertainment. Sports 1440 brings the heat with bold opinions, big personalities, and Edmonton's fiercest fans. This is your turf. This is Edmonton's sports leader, Sports 1440. Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. Safety, reliability, and uncommon value. Visit Subaru.ca.
The weather doesn't care about your shift or your schedule. Carhartt Rain Defender sweatshirts let you battle back against the ever-changing elements. Carhartt's durable, water-repellent technology lets light rain beat up and roll right off. Layer up and stay on the job longer without getting drenched. Get your Carhartt Rain Defender sweatshirts at all 3 of our Edmonton job site workwear locations.
Job site workwear, tough different jobs.
If you're without personal health insurance benefits from your employer and are self-employed or retiring, contact Innovative Benefits. Innovative Benefits helps break down personal health plans to put you in the driver's seat and reduce your net cost. They'll help identify the best plan for you and your family so you can pay for what you do use and look how to reduce what you don't use. Don't be left out in the cold. Understand all your options with Innovative Benefits. For more information, visit innovativebenefits.ca today.
A Saskatchewan boy who grew up loving and playing sports. At least we think he grew up. Listen to Kevin Carius weekday mornings from 7 to 11 on Edmonton's home for sports, Sports 1440. This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
You know, Pat, the Cleveland move, I agree with everything that you laid out there about it. I look at it as a similar move to what the Raptors did when they picked up Kawhi. You know, very different ages in that, but it's swinging for the fence, taking a chance that this would be the missing ingredient in a talented lineup that failed in the playoffs last year in spite of a sterling regular season record, and saying, you know, even again with the criticism of Harden over the years as a non-primetime player being able to deliver in the most critical moments, which I think is a bit unfair. There's certainly fair aspects to it, but it's a bit unfair and a bit harsh in terms of what Harden's actually done in the playoffs. So it really will be fascinating. I'm curious in Boston with the addition that they made it in the post, that the possibility and the rumblings, and it sounds like for all intents and purposes that Tatum is committed to coming back this year. So there's lots of subplots all around the league. It really was a fascinating trade season and deadline. And in some of the alterations, here's something, and I'm jumping around a bit, but I was last night I watched the Wolves play the Clippers, the no-name Clippers, without Kawhi. And the Clippers have been incredibly competitive since the trade with and without Kawhi. Like they've given they don't go into games usually. I think they've had a couple of lopsided losses, maybe one, but overall they've won some games surprisingly, and they've been highly competitive in all of the other games, including with Minnesota last night. They gave Minnesota everything that they can handle. But the Clippers with Mathurin going over there, some of the young talent they have, so, all of the different machinations of the picks you described, those are the kind of things in the NBA right now that I think are really exciting and unique among a lot of franchises. And tell me if there's any merit to this thought. This, to me, the mustard seed for all of these draft picks and trades, as opposed to going out and spending tons of money in signing high-profile free agents or trading for Giannis, this kind of comes from the success of OKC last year and the way that they built their team. And then I have to throw Indiana into that as well, and the way that Indiana has built your team. I think you guys are primarily responsible for changing the landscape on the way franchises look at how to build successful teams.
And I think that's true in large part because of the new CBA. It's a lot harder to compile a team of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, or of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green. We're talking about some of those teams that have basically said, we're going to get 3 stars or superstars together. And then even if we put a G League team around them, which I'm not saying either of those teams had that, but that's what we're trying to do. Right. Well, instead, the Pacers have, of course, talent at the top, but I don't think anybody is at least yet calling Tyrese Halliburton first team All-NBA. And Siakam's had a wonderful career. And he's always, it seems like every single year, Siakam's one of the last couple guys to be an All-Star or the first couple guys to be out, which is a great spot to be. But what I'm getting at is they're not LeBron James or Dwayne Wade, but they've made it work with depth. They've shown the importance of depth, and it's harder to hold on to some of these big contract guys. You can only really keep 1 or 2 of them, and the depth aspect then I think becomes a lot more important, which to me is great for the sport. I think it's great to see, a 4 seed, even if it wasn't the 4 seed that I work for, a 4 seed be a win away from a championship, because I think we hit some time there where I think some fans might have said the playoffs were too predictable, and so to get upsets like that and Cinderella teams that you're used to watching happen in March Madness, I have some of that flavor in the NBA. I think was really, really good for the league. So I think unquestionably it's true. I think depth is shown to be important. And look, the Phoenix Suns example failed for more reasons than just trying to assemble 3 stars together. Bradley Beal was never anything resembling one. The fit wasn't good, but I also think part of the reason it failed was because they had absolutely zero depth. I mean, that team beyond those 3 with Durant being the other guy, 4 on down was one of the worst rosters that I've ever seen. And because they ran out of money because the new CBA punishes you for going way, way, way into the tax. So then it's interesting. You watch Phoenix, they get rid of, Durant and Beal, and Booker has been, of course, the mainstay there for his whole career. And all of a sudden, Phoenix is having a real nice year, and all of a sudden they're deep, and you're going, okay, this formula works again. So it's a fascinating push-pull for the league, in my opinion, but I like the trend. I like the direction where things are going. Oklahoma City unquestionably had depth. They've also got the stars up top. They're just, beyond Shea, the other 2 are just really young. But I mean, it's amazing, and some of this is just the work that Presti did, in the Paul George trade, and gaining all of those draft picks. I mean, they just got so many guys that they can run in there that are not household names, and then all of a sudden they're capable of being a starting shooting guard for a really good team on any given night. So the Pacers got it done with depth unquestionably. Oklahoma City with young guys that hadn't yet gotten to those big contracts, and then the type of players that Oklahoma City has from like 8 to 15 are just remarkable, and you see it in examples right now where they're dealing with some injuries. No Shea, no Jalen Williams, and yet they're still out there competing as one of the top teams in the league. But I do think for the time being, the days of trying to get 3 big stars together and then just putting whoever else you can afford onto the floor is not the strategy that teams are going for, and I think that's a good thing for the league.
I'm talking to Pat Boylan, the voice of the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever, here on Hoop City with Paul Sir on our deep dive. Pat, I would be remiss if we didn't touch on the WNBA today, because and these are my words, so I don't want there to be any confusion about where this statement comes from. To me, the negotiations that are going on right now are another unfortunate example of this league not being ready for prime time, not being ready for the gift that they were given 2 years ago when Caitlin Clark arrived in Indiana, when she played NCAA basketball, arrived in Indiana. And of course, I'm a homer, full disclosure, from Iowa, love Caitlin Clark, of course, but she was the goose that was the goose that laid the golden egg that propelled the league forward. And what was exciting for the WNBA was last year, even when Caitlin had to stop playing and wasn't able to complete anything close to a full season, the numbers from the previous years were up, even without Caitlin. And there were a lot of naysayers saying, oh, when she goes, the league's numbers are going to drop in attendance and viewership, and actually both went up. Paige Beckers, Asia Wilson, good things. But now this clumsy, weird negotiation, and I've got other descriptors, but man, oh man, they are flirting. They're flirting at the wrong time with the wrong action. That's my opinion. What's yours?
As it relates to Caitlin Clark first, because I thought you detailed that well. There's two statements that I believe to be inarguably factual, and if you disagree with either of these, then I question not your literally, but anybody who might say these motives. One of them being, if you think, and sometimes you hear this, that the WNBA only exists because of the popularity that Caitlin Clark has brought in, that is factually inaccurate. I got in 2014. The 2015 season was my first year calling games for the Fever. I can't tell you how much this game and this league has grown from 2015 to 2023. And 100%. It continues to get, as you noted, Paige Beckers, Juju Watkins is on her way. There continues to be major star power that's coming into this league that's lifting it. But also, if you can't understand and appreciate the value of Caitlin Clark, in which maybe no sports league has ever seen before. Tiger Woods in golf is the only one I can even think of that's even close. And if you don't understand that Caitlin Clark has not just increased the ratings, but frankly, moved you ahead decades in time, in 2 years. If you don't understand the turbocharge that she has delivered, even the ways I'm describing it are not giving it enough credence, then maybe you don't understand or are a bad faith actor in the other direction too. And both of those things can be true at the same time.
Could I just inject something here real quickly, Pat?
It's your show. You can do whatever you want.
Well, I'm an Iowan, though. You're taught to be polite. So, but the only other pair that were transformational, but here's the difference. Magic and Bird, it's often said, saved the NBA. Very true. But it's different to what Caitlin did, because I think that your descriptor of Tiger Woods and her, the turbocharges the exact. It's like jettisoned the Tiger Woods, the sport of golf. Caitlin Clark jettisoned the WNBA, as you accurately depicted, decades ahead. Magic and Bird stabilized and built from a new foundational level. That's different than Caitlin and her impact. Absolutely. It was like throwing a hand grenade into the league, and it exploded.
No question. Yeah, no question. I mean, look, and also you're going to have no issues talking to me praising Caitlin Clark or Larry Bird. So that's you are barking up the right tree.
I know that.
Listen, I mean, what Caitlin has brought this league is almost immeasurable. I mean, you're talking about TV ratings at times, that are rivaling NBA playoff ratings and, really anything in this country besides the NFL. And even at times, those haven't been wildly off. It's an unbelievable statement to be saying in 2025-26 that a Caitlin Clark WNBA game is on par with the NBA or the MLB, or even in some instances, at times portions of the NFL. It's a saying that you never thought would come out of your mouth. But that also doesn't mean that the league hasn't been growing. It absolutely has, and it's in an unbelievable place because of numerous other players as well. So I will be honest, I have intentionally kept myself away from the conversation in all of this negotiation because, frankly, I'm not smart enough to understand it, and it does me no good to pick sides here. I work for maybe the best ownership group in all of sports in the Simons. They have been dedicated to the WNBA from essentially its inception, when teams were falling left and right off and wanted to sell their teams, and owners wanted to sell their teams. The Simons believed in the WNBA. I don't know if you truth serumed them. I don't know that they would have seen a Caitlin Clark moment coming, but they saw the bigger picture, and there's no ownership group that deserves, and no family that deserves everything that Caitlin Clark has brought, in my opinion, of course, a biased one, more than the Simons. At the same time, you want what's best for the players, and you want both of those things to marry together well to continue for the growth of the league. But I think this is an instance where, once again, Caitlin Clark continues to, say and do everything right. She is on record multiple times saying we need to get this done. This cannot be a cog in a major moment and a major movement. And so, me being the optimist that I am, I continue, until a moment happens where, something significant for the 2026 season is lost. Until that moment, I continue to be optimistic that while maybe this hasn't been the smoothest ride in the world, at the end of the day, if you get all your games, if you start the season when you want to, and you get all your games in as expected, then to me, it's no harm, no foul. I continue to be optimistic they'll get there. I think the players understand the value of the moment. And obviously, I think the owners do as well. And we can't have a work stoppage. And I sincerely hope we will not have a work stoppage. But I continue to be optimistic that they will get there, and hopefully it's something that we're seeing here in the next couple of weeks. The draft is scheduled for the 13th, I believe, of April. So that's an important date on the calendar. Free agency has to happen, and expansion draft has to happen. So you have to have enough time to get all of those things in. But Paul, maybe there's different people that have different thoughts on this. I just continue to be optimistic that this will get done, because I do think at the end of the day, both sides understand the gravity at hand here. But we'll see. I'm simply a bystander on the sidelines, hoping, like everybody else, that we'll get to see WNBA basketball in 2026.
Well, I am hopeful that your optimism is met, because there would be nothing better for the game of not just the WNBA, but women's basketball and the basketball world in general, to get the WNBA back on the court, to get Caitlin Clark back on the court, and continue the growth and development of this this marvelous sport, really. And as you say, the quality of play, the quality of players, that similar to the NBA and their youngsters that are coming into the league, the same thing's happening with the WNBA, and the depth is improving. Everything about it is improving. So I share that I share that hope. I don't know that I share the same amount of optimism, but I am optimistic and I am hopeful, because there's so much at stake, and both parties have to understand that. And it's important that Pat Boylan's calling the Indiana Fever games when that gets going as well. So
that's way down the list of what is important here. But selfishly, obviously, it's been just an unbelievable experience these last couple of years with Caitlin to get to call her games. And I was fortunate to do the WNBA for many, many years before her. And it's a league that I truly am passionate about. It's a league that I love watching. I mean, the quality in play, you go back and watch 2015 WNBA. And there were great players, Tamika Catchings, the Sparks and the Lynx. Don't get me wrong. There was great basketball, but the depth of it, the difference in the depth of the league is dramatic. And that's going to continue to improve. And the product is going to continue to get better. I mean, I've seen it, significantly over the last decade or so. And now you're starting to talk about these players that are coming in with real staying power, household names. Everybody knows Caitlin Clark, but I think most sports fans know the name Paige Beckers, and I think most sports fans, know Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart and some of these other players. And so the trend line is in the right direction, and we just, this cannot be the type of thing that halts that momentum. I completely agree with that, and it's what Caitlin Clark has said from day one. She's spot on. She understands it. And this is the epicenter of the growth of the league in Caitlin Clark. So hopefully that all will come to fruition. And I hope the next time I'm talking to you, we're previewing a WNBA season ahead. We'll see.
100%. Pat, thank you so much. You've been extremely generous with your time today. It's such a pleasure always. Enjoy the remaining games in the Indiana Pacer season and the excitement that's continuing to build towards next year for the loyal Pacers fans and faithful, and excited about the potential for the WNBA season and seeing Caitlin and her teammates back on the court for the Fever and the league to get going. Great time for basketball. Thanks so much, Pat, for joining me today.
Of course, Paul, always good to be with you and always good to talk to everybody in your listening audience.
I appreciate that, Pat. Pat Boylan, voice of the Indiana Fever, of the Indiana Pacers, here with Hoop City, with Paul Sir on our deep dive. We'll be right back.
He's a legend in the booth and a master on the mic. Low Tide brings the banter weekdays from noon to 2. Sports 1440 is where Edmonton talks sports. Get in the game. Text 833-401-1440. Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. The perfect choice for Alberta's challenging weather and road conditions. Visit Subaru.ca.
Hi, it's McKenna, the Kidney Foundation's Kid Ambassador with the little Q&A.
McKenna, does the kidney car program only take old, beaten up, non-driving cars?
Nope, we get donations of all kinds of cars. We make sure newer, high-end, and classic cars get to good homes. And the more the donated car is worth, the more the tax receipt will be.
So any car
can turn into a life-saving machine.
Visit kidneycar.ca.
When it comes to sports in Edmonton, Jason Greger is a must-listen. He brings you the inside scoop with guests from across North America. If it matters in sports, you'll hear it here first. Greger rolls out weekdays from 2 to 6 on Sports 1440. Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin. CKJR is a Stingray radio station.
Download the free radio player app and listen wherever you go.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome back to Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick. Pleased to be joined by Steve Sir. Steve, good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Steve is this week's Community Champion, and Community Champions is sponsored by Innovative Benefits. If it's time for you to review your company benefits, personal insurance, or investment strategies, why don't you talk to Randy Parrish and his team at Innovative Benefits? They will give you straightforward and honest advice with access to the best products in the industry. Trust the great folks at Innovative Benefits to do what's best for you, your family, and your business. To find out more, go to innovativebenefits.ca. Well, Steve, local legend, obviously, Canadian legend, I think more accurately. 2 championships with Ross Shepard back in 99 and 2000. Set the record for 3-pointers made in the state of Minnesota that stands today. I looked it up before I came. The second place guys, you're still like 42 ahead of him. It was an incredible season.
Good.
Yeah.
Keep him there. Yeah.
And then has held for almost 25 years the record in the NCAA, well, almost 20 years rather, record in the NCAA for 3-point career percentage for those who made over 300 3-pointers. You had a wonderful 3x3 career, long-time top-ranked player for the whole country of Canada. Now the national team coach for Mongolia for men and women, and much, much more. But why don't we start with the fact that you're home right now, and you have been for several months. You have been coaching the Otwell Junior High School junior high team, a girls team. Your daughter, Caitlin, plays for them. Not daughter Caitlin, daughter Izzy plays for them. How's that been to be back into coaching, in coaching young girls?
Fun. It's been a fun season. You forget how short junior high basketball actually is. We have 3 tournaments that have been a lot of fun for the kids. It's cool to see how much they look forward to that, of playing at high schools and the big gyms at the big schools, and being reminded of just how much fun that was when I was growing up with my friends. If you get to have the big weekend of basketball where you might play a feature game on Friday night or something like that, and the excitement of that. And then we've had 6 league games, which doesn't sound like a lot. And our girls went 6-0, which is the first time at Otwell that the girls team has accomplished that in a long time.
Fantastic.
It's a wonderful group of kids. I would tell anybody, if you have a chance to work with players and young people at that level, it's a very rewarding experience because it's a very formative time in their life. It was for me. Junior high was when some lights started to go on for myself. So being able to see some dots get connected and some lights go on for our girls, in particular my daughter, is really meaningful and special. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday talking about what were the important points that you want the kids to take away and hopefully either move into their spring season or move into their next season at junior high, or take away to high school. And it's to be competitive, and that you can have fun through being pushed. You can have fun through competing with your teammates. And then also too of really enjoying the success of your teammates, of if somebody has a big game, being really genuinely happy for them because in practice you work hard together. Everybody sees the work that they all do, and that when they earn something, that it's deserved because it's through their effort and their sweat. It's been a really fun experience. We have playoffs starting next week. I get nervous before the games coaching kids, which sounds funny because if you stepped outside of it, you'd say like, well, it's just, it's junior high basketball. It's you want the kids to do well, and it's been fun to be in the gym with them, seeing them improve week by week, practice by practice. And thank you for giving us a chance to talk about it.
Well, no, I think it's really important for people to hear about the satisfaction that can come from giving back, number one, as a coach. Number two, how important these moments are to these kids. This is their moment. And when I reflect back on you and your brothers and when you guys were playing community league, when you were playing junior high and high school, just how important that was, and how some of the moments, to me, I always said this, and I said this to the guys that I coached at Concordia University here in Edmonton. I said, this is just as important, and I'd be curious about your opinion on this, Steve. This is just as important in this moment to you as it is to anybody playing at Duke, anybody playing at any university, no matter how high profile it might be. This is your moment. This is your life. This is your effort. And this is every bit as significant as that is.
I 100% agree with that. It's important as you want to make it. I've always steadfast believe this, is the big time's where you're at. You're never less than being somewhere that might be a farther off place, and you're never more than anybody else being at the highest level, because what you really do realize as you move through the game is, if I'm giving myself an opportunity to play, if someone else has provided me an opportunity to play, it's as important as I want it to be. These are going to be my stories and my memories later on in life. We always, I think, start to have a little bit of a different version of it as we start to get older. Like, oh man, I never took a day off. I never took a playoff. If I missed
shots a day.
Yeah, if I missed a shot, it was because the rim was bad. Like, there's those hazy memories start to set in. But I've always really believed that the big times where you're at, it's not going to be grass is greener when you get to the other side, because you're going to get to the other side and be like, oh man, it's very similar to where it was. It's going to come down to whether or not I want to do the work, whether or not I'm going to fully commit to this, whether or not I'm going to deal with adversity in the right way and continue to go back. But that's always really struck a chord with me, is that level of importance that you put on something because of your own personal principles and your own personal expectations. And that's what it makes it feel like. Big times where I'm at, whether I'm in Mongolia coaching at the World Cup with our women for a medal, or whether you're coaching the junior high senior girls team at Otwell, you got to give the most to yourself, because you have to have that deep inside of you. It's difficult to not go on and on about it, but I think it's important to impart that to a variety of age groups of, well, I'll do this when I get there. Do it now, because when you get there, then you're going to be ready to continue it.
Well, and I think that's a great way to put it. And I think one of the challenges that young people have right now, even as opposed to when you were growing up, is that when you and your brothers were growing up, that was the time when the basketball world started to enlarge. Up until that point, it was very narrow. You had community league. That was one game on Saturday. You had junior high, and that was pretty much it. Then clubs started to come in, and you were part of one of the early clubs in Edmonton.
Sure.
But I think like now, there's if you play one game, there's another one, and there's another one coming. So I think sometimes, like you said, the big times where you're at, sometimes I think young people, 13, 14, 15 years old, it becomes rote. It just becomes routine, because you're playing so many games so often that you have to really battle to make sure it stays important, that you're on track to continue to do the work to become the better player, as opposed to just cruising through one game to the other. Fair observation from your perspective?
Agreed. I think it also then, if you wanted to add one more level to that, it becomes a major responsibility for adults of being able to help to keep this in context for kids. It isn't about, well, you got to do all this so you can go play in college. You got to do all this so you can be a pro. I hate when people talk with kids about being pros. I didn't think about playing professional basketball until my last year of playing in Northern Arizona. I was already an all-conference guy. I already led the nation in three-point percentage. I just didn't think about that because I wanted to be an all-conference player. My biggest goals growing up were I wanted to play for the national team. I wanted to play in the States. I'll take one step back. I wanted to play for Dave Youngs at Ross Shepherd High School. I wanted to go to the States and prove I could play with those kids. I didn't have this bill of goods that was constantly sold to me by adults. And this is why I'm saying it's important for adults and coaches to do this, because I was fortunate to have that with you as one of my coaches, my first real coach, to have Phil Allen, to have Daryl Cleave, to have Dave Youngs, to have Mike Fullerton, to have these important role models who were coaching me, but then also instilled in me of like, be good now, focus on now, make this experience count now. If you do this stuff, there's going to be North Stars and pie in the sky, things that you can chase. But if you're not taking care of these things now, it's going to be really hard to do those things later. And, be where your feet at, be where your feet are at. So in order to keep this in context, I think for younger players is, you're right. There's always another game. But make those games count, make those practices count. Look at it as like little grains of rice that are added to a huge bucket over time. And then all of a sudden that bucket's full and you're ready for what comes next. Because what often gets underestimated is we talk about these big levels and these major places to play. And then you run up against it, you go like, I'm not ready for this at all. There's monsters in this thing. And I didn't realize it was going to be that big of a jump. It's generalizing, but I think the satisfaction that comes from keeping your feet on the ground where you are, of saying like, guys, like, let's enjoy this. Let's have fun. Let's compete. You've been working so hard. Go out there and make that time count right now, today. And then we'll worry about tomorrow. And if you're doing all that, you're getting to be a better player. So when you really stretch it out and look over the course of a season, have I gotten better? Of course you have, because you've been focusing on what's right in front of you at that moment, being the best player you can be, being the best teammate you can be, getting up off the bench and supporting somebody when they come out of the game, being ready to go when it's your number called. Those are things that I hold near and dear to myself because I had excellent coaching and excellent male role models in my life that helped me know that when it's my time to do this, when it's my time to tell these stories and to say and insist on these things, that it comes from a place of experience and it comes from a place knowing how valuable it can be. I think if we do that, then it gives kids a chance and it gives young players a chance to really value the moment. And then when you move to those other levels, the reality is you're going to reflect so fondly on those, because me coaching my daughter now, one of my favorite memories is playing at the McNally Junior High Feeder Tournament. And I played at Kansas and I played at Arizona and I played it against all, and these are some of my most treasured moments. Kids don't know that. Adults really can help connect the dots.
Well, a couple of quick stories that I think would be fun to share. You mentioned the McNally tournament.
Yeah.
So it's a junior high tournament.
Not by accident. Yeah.
It's a junior high school tournament. Vernon Barford versus Otwell.
The greatest junior high basketball game ever played in Edmonton.
By far.
Yeah. Full stop.
Full stop. Unparalleled. And so here, it's a junior high tournament. It's the final in the evening. Barford has Mike Melnichuk. Mike had 51 points in the first half.
Yeah.
Barford had a 20-point lead on Otwell Junior High. Second half, Otwell comes storming back, down 20. Otwell wins 104-103. Melnichuk has 71. Steve has, I think, like 55. Steve has 55. And the crowd was insane.
Yeah.
Like, just like as vocal, as insane, as passionate as you'd find at any game anywhere. Packed gym.
Yeah.
It's a junior high game.
Hot. I remember the gym was
roasting.
boiling
Everybody
hot.
was just drip.
It was
the
great.
Crowd was drenched in sweat. And I remember, because this is very un-Canadian, especially as it relates to basketball, not so much hockey, Josh. But, okay, so it's 104-103. And I remember walking out of the gym and the mother of one of your teammates goes, "Was that okay?" She was like, "I'd never done that before." I said, "You'll remember this the rest of your life."
Fun, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was fun. That was alive. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
The other game was your 9th grade year in Otwell Community League. So here's a community league game. We're down at Youth Provincials in Calgary, playing a Calgary team we had walloped earlier in the day.
Yep.
In the provincial championship.
Yep.
We're down at regulation play.
Mm-hmm.
We hit a shot to go to overtime.
Yep.
First overtime, we're down. Hit a shot at the buzzer to go to the second overtime. Second overtime, we're down. Hit a shot to go to a third overtime.
Yeah.
Now in the third overtime, we're down 2 with 12 seconds to go.
Something like that.
Something like that. You dribble down.
I make a tough shot coming off the right side. I remember John on our team set a good screen. I made a really tough shot.
Fadeaway 3.
Yeah, tie it. They inbound the ball to Dane, who I played provincial team with a couple of years later, and he turns around and MJ Anderson, who I played with at Otwell, is sitting right there unnoticed, and he tips the ball out of Dane's hands going up. So if anyone could see, his hand went up and tipped the ball up, caught it in the air, shot it at the buzzer, and we win the provincials that way.
We win the provincials on a fadeaway baseline and triple overtime.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't as dramatic as any moment for anyone at any level, it was. It was every bit as dramatic. You've had those kind of moments at the highest level. I did a long, long time ago as a player as well. That was as special as any.
Very.
Because like you said, if you're in the moment, it matters. It doesn't matter that there's a national television audience. That doesn't matter to you, to the people that matter to you, if they're there to share it with you, with your teammates, with your coaches. That's really the essence of the sport, isn't it?
It's the bones of it. It's what you really, especially as you get older, what you realize is the substance of the sport, is the deep love for it, the commitment you have to your group, the real importance, like the genuine foundational importance of being competitive, wanting to win. and how that's going to mean that everyone has to contribute. It's not just me dribbling the ball. It's not me taking all the shots. It's all the little pieces fitting together of everyone feeling responsible for their jobs and proud of the effort that they give, be it a major contribution or even just something small off the bench that's still invaluable. It gets easier to understand when you're older. It gets easier to understand when you're older how lucky you are to even have had those experiences. The two that you highlighted are two of my favorite basketball memories. You're awfully fortunate to have that. But then you think about, like, those were all our neighborhood kids. And I saw guys later on in life that all said that those were the best sports memories, some of the best memories of their lives. So again, it's easy to always be thinking about what's down the road, and then thinking that I'll just get through this stuff right now and I'll do the best that I can. But that's where I want to get, especially now with all when I get to the States with NIL and all these things, I'll be on TV and okay, but you'll never be able to get this stuff back. And as I said before at the beginning, big time's where you're at. And it all of a sudden becomes that much more apparent when you get older and maybe the game changes for you, where you become a coach or you're in some other kind of role, and people are going to want to know what was your basketball journey? What led you to wanting to be involved in coaching young players or helping out at a gym or passing to whoever or just going to the court with your son or daughter? What led you to want to try and do this? And those are the stories that the game's built upon. I would tell anybody, one of the keys to being really good at something, or really, if you want to, again, keep it in this context, really good at basketball, great at basketball, is understanding what came before you. Ask for those stories. When someone who's older is talking about these things that they experienced, like, listen, ask questions. That helped me growing up, of listening to your stories of playing at Winona State and playing college basketball in the States, but growing up as an American kid playing in that system. Dave Young's playing for the Golden Bears during their great era, and the players he played against. Who was the best shooter he played against? Who was the toughest defender? Who was the best player that he played with? You hear these types of things and you realize, like, man, there's a lot that came before me. I want to aspire to that. Big time's where you're at.
Big time's where you're at. And I think the parents and kids battle right now because the big time is presented to them in a variety of ways, oftentimes with a price tag attached to it. And you have to be very wise to navigate through that, both as a parent and as an athlete, about what experience you actually want to get involved at, and not lose sight, like you said, of where you're at right now. Because watching your Otwell girls play and the amount of improvement that has gone on this season, the intensity that they play with, you can see that they are being encouraged and they are buying into where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's all across, and that's because you're involved and it's our family, but that's all across the city. It's all across the world. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
That's the common thread in the experience.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We're going to take a break right now, and we're going to return with our community champion, Steve Sir, here on Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Edmonton sports fans, stay informed with Sports 1440. Stream us. Listen to us on the AM dial. However you consume this radio station, thanks for listening. Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. Confidence in motion. Visit Subaru.ca.
Take your skating to the next level with Aligned Custom Skate Performance in Sherwood Park. We make your skates feel like an extension of you. From kids lacing up for the first time to beer league warriors to elite level pros, we fit every skater with precision and care. Only a Duster goes straight from off the shelf to on the ice. Our expert alignment process ensures the perfect fit, eliminating pressure points and maximizing your blade's performance. Aligned Custom Skate gives you the edge where it matters most, on the ice. Stop being the team grocery stick and visit AlignedSkate.com today. Whether it's a full custom fitting or professional sharpening, we've got you covered. So don't just skate, skate aligned. Book your appointment today and feel the difference. Discover why we're trusted by hockey pros and podium champions. Help us cure the bender in your life. Once again, visit AlignedSkate.com to get started.
Custom skate performance with precision meets passion.
Heart 2 Care Home Care is an approved Veterans Independence Program provider. Not sure if you qualify for personal care, home care, or nursing assistance? Call 780-717-9839 and our team will help you access your benefits. Visit heart2care.ca today.
If you've got a smart speaker, get it to play Sports 1440.
And it doesn't matter when you listen as we roll out the sports talk
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Edmonton's home for sports radio is Sports 1440.
Own and run a small business? Innovative Benefits provides private health service plan setup, as well as administration services for businesses like yours. But the best part is, Innovative Benefits offers benefit plans that cost less than the industry average, 20 to 40% less. And they provide 100% coverage with no insurance company rules, administration, or interference. So if you have medical, dental, or healthcare expenses, their plans will always increase your cash flow. Visit innovativebenefits.ca for more.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry. We did it.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome back to Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick. We're joined by our community champion, Steve Sir, this morning. Steve, today literally is the day that 3x3, FIBA 3x3 gets going in the world with minor events right now, relatively speaking. But the circuit, the tour, is going to start up real soon. It's a new Olympic cycle. Gearing up, this will be the third Olympics that 3x3 will be a medal sport in. The sport is growing in leaps and bounds. There are more events globally than ever before. I would say one of the big growth areas is an area that's very special to you, and that's in the women's side of things. Talk about what's happening in the 3x3 world.
As you said, it's going to be the third Olympic cycle where 3x3 is a medal sport. They've expanded to 12 countries on both the men's and the women's side, up from 8.
Yeah.
More opportunities, which is great. The expansion comes at a good time because there's, I don't think, ever been a point in the sport where it's been as competitive as it is on the Pro Tour and then also connecting to national teams. As you mentioned, there are events starting already. I mean, it's February. When I first started getting involved in 3x3, the season didn't really get going until May. So it's pushed up further and it's pushed back further. It's a full professional season with cups, with Pro Tour stops, with smaller events that connect to these other things. There's so much opportunity now for teams to play and compete and earn spots. One of the main areas that was an area of concern when I started playing was, how do new teams get started in this? And you can see that there are vast opportunities now for new teams to get themselves together, get to a stop, play, and as with everything, well, how do we get going? It's like, well, you're going to have to play, and then you're going to have to win. So that's the hardest part. But it's great to see from a growth standpoint. It's great to see the amount of players that are coming in, how serious this is being taken, the amount of training and the amount of attention to detail. All of that, when you wrap it all up, makes for a great product to watch, a super competitive field in which to be a part of. And as you mentioned too, the women's side continues to grow by leaps and bounds. So this is not just on the men's side as well. Like this is continuing to grow and be pushed forward for both sides.
Well, and I think it's exciting to see because the women's side, it's taken a few years to start to gain what I would call just momentum.
Yeah.
But it's become more professionalized, obviously, more participation. The players playing are better. The teams are taking it much more seriously. Like you described, I'll go back to that term. The professionalization of 3x3 is really taking hold. And of course, that's what you're involved with, heavily involved with the country of Mongolia, large geographic countries stuck geographically in the middle between China and Russia.
Yeah.
3.5 million people in a vast space. But they have really targeted 3x3 as a sport that they're not just passionate about, but they believe they can compete at the Olympic level. And that was borne out this past year when your Mongolian women finished with the silver medal at the World Cup. That's huge, Steve. Talk about that journey.
It was not a easy, quick journey.
No.
We 2 years ago when I took over the women's program, we had won one game on the Pro Tour, on the Women's Series Tour, and it was not a pretty one. If I'm just being honest, it was one of those
A rock
ones.
fight.
Yeah, with big heavy rocks. So it was something that when we looked at, but it's fun to joke about now, especially with the girls because of how far we've come. But one of the things when I came into the program, in particular on the women's side, was there's something there. We can get better if we just focus on the simple, basic things of basketball. If we take care of the ball better, still a work in progress for us. Our passing is something that can always get better. But if we improve that, we'll be a little bit better. If we shoot it a little bit better, we'll be better. If we have a better commitment to the defensive end of the ball, I mean, one of the areas in 3x3 that has oftentimes been misunderstood is that it's fast paced and, you can give this up. You don't give anything up. You have to play basketball. Like the parallels that you can draw between 5-on-5 and 3x3, it's basketball, but it's different. But then there's the things that are universally correct between both sports, where it's you don't just concede points. You don't just make the decision of, I'm just going to wander out here and I'm going to ask for play defense. And this was one thing that we had to really instill on the women's side, was taking pride on that side of the ball and being a group that made it difficult for them to score. Of course, it's 3x3. It's fast. There's good players. Every year, as you mentioned, the players have gotten better. So you're going to have to make that effort. It's not going to be easy. But then also, too, the emotional and the mental side of it was a big part of that, too. Feeling worthy to compete and feeling that if you do, much like what we talked about before, if you're doing the hard work day by day, the real hard work, not the Instagrammable stuff that you get pats on the back for through likes and comments, like the thankless stuff. If you're doing that, that should instill in you that you are deserving of good results. You are deserving of these wins. And that was a big hump for us to get over, because we would run up in games where we'd be playing tough, we'd be right there, and then there would be a tough moment or a couple plays that wouldn't go right, and we would start to get this high level of anxiety of, here we go again. We shouldn't be here in the first place. That was a big mountain to climb for us. And I don't think for anybody that's ever a fully formed thing. Everyone's always going to have doubt when they're competing, especially when you're competing against teams that are really good and are really going after you. But the stride that we made there to give our women credit was huge, because we went from a place of just kind of being patted on the back of, you guys keep doing a good job. You're trying so hard. And I hated that for the players. This has to motivate you to want, very much so. This has to motivate you to stick it to them, that you're not just here to be the participation ribbon. Like, you're here to play, you're here to win games, you're here to compete, you're here to show the hard work that you've been putting in. And steadily progressing, winning a bronze medal at Asia Cup, massive step for us. Winning a women's series in Ulaanbaatar, huge step for us. And then to have that the next year end in a silver medal at World Cup was unthinkable. But it showed what's possible when you really invest in the betterment of the group, the betterment of the individuals. Obviously, what's good for the individual is going to be good for the group. What's good for the group is going to be good for the individual. And our girls really bought into that. And now the next challenge will be is, how do you maintain that? How do you get to that rare air and take that little itty bitty step, that game of inches, to even take it a little bit further, or just maintain what you've done. And that'll be the next challenge. And it's a fun challenge because they took these ones on head on and saw what was possible. So now you can always say that, hey, you can't tell me that it's not rewarding. This changed these girls' lives. Now you got to be tough enough to get back to work and realize that you got a whole season in front of you and you got to try and do it again.
From 2 years ago, winning one game, to walking down the steps of the presidential national palace, receiving receiving medals from the president of Mongolia because you accomplished something that's never been accomplished by any Mongolian team before, to medal in a World Cup or in any major world team event before. Like you said, it changed their lives. But now comes the hard work.
Yeah.
You had the hard work to this point, but now comes the hard work, and it's different hard work. It's the same but different.
Yeah.
Maintaining, not dropping back, maintaining and building. And it's still going to be the slow build, isn't it? There's no shortcut.
No, it still comes back to the same things. Are we going to get better as players? Like, are the players improving? That's a question in talking to other coaches that I think handle this the right way. It's a question that I ask myself a lot when we're over there. Is, are we getting better? Like, are our players getting better? Do they feel like they're getting better? Yeah. Doesn't mean we play great all the time, but are we taking steps? Are we better in certain situations than we were a month ago? 3x3 is it's a wild sport because it's constantly changing.
And it is a marathon year.
Very much. And it's one of the hardest competitive areas of having stops be your form of competition. It's impossible to peak all the time you play over 8 months. And that's such a unique area for 3x3 because you have all these world tour events. We've had world tour in Edmonton. So people who are listening, I've had a chance to see what an event like this looks like. It's a 2-day event. You play a maximum, if you win everything, 5 games in those 2 days. You have to factor in travel. You have to factor in tournament you might have coming next or the tournament you're coming from. But to be constantly on some steady arc of improvement all year is impossible. You're going to have peaks and you're going to have valleys. How quickly can you get out of the low spots? When you are up, how do you work to maintain it without having an unrealistic amount of pressure on the teams? And then how do you manage your practice time, your recovery time, your time in the weight room, your time in video, all those other things around, trying to make sure that we're just ready for what's next and we're learning from what happened. It's a big challenge. But I think, especially when you get into the 3x3 world, you and I were talking a little bit about this yesterday. It's a really interesting community of people. There's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of big borrow and steal. And there's also a lot of understanding within the community that, like, this is a tough sport. It requires a lot. So, when people get down, there also is support within the community of, like, you guys will get back. You guys will keep working. But, if you're in at an event early, like, well, why don't we get a practice together and we'll work through some stuff. We can talk, we can do that. And then you might see that same team over the next weekend playing in a competition. That stuff lends to it too. And I think for the players, you have to be cut from a certain cloth in order to take that on. You got to be, I'm not saying tougher, but you got to be a little different to want to have that challenge of, like, okay, we won last week. Got a whole new tournament where it all resets next week. Can we do it again? It's really tough to do. And but it makes it a lot of fun. It's a very, very different way to do competition, but a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. And like you said, I'd like to highlight and emphasize a lot of really good people, but not just well-intended, but genuinely caring and genuinely collaborative while still maintaining their goals and ambitions.
Very much so.
But there really seems to have been a culture of collaboration that the people genuinely seem to buy into the fact that if we work together, we're all going to get better, as opposed to what often happens of teams, players, coaches going into silos and trying to hide what they're doing. There's really no secrets in 3x3.
No, and I could talk about this for an hour. It's one of the things that really fascinates me about the sport. When you talk to most of the people that are involved, men and women's side, there's always a story that led them to 3x3. They weren't drafted. It wasn't something that they played all the way up from youth. Everybody in a formal setting, everyone who's played basketball has played 3-on-3, whether it's at Hoop It Up or the Gus Macker or Red Bull or whatever you want, whatever version you have in your community, everyone's played it. In practice, when you have to teach specific things and you want to have more space, and everyone always says the same thing. It's a lot of fun. I have more room to be creative. I'm touching the ball. It's harder, much harder. There's more conditioning. off-ball movement, all those good things. But all the people that are involved in it on a professional level, all of them came into the sport and they did because they wanted to. They chose to. There was an opportunity that they saw. Very rarely are you looking at this and there's someone that begrudgingly was taken into the sport. All right, I'll do it. There have been people that have done that. They don't last very long. So what I've always loved about the 3x3 world is you got to be a little bit of an outlaw to be in 3x3. There has to be a little bit of, maybe this didn't work out for me in 5-on-5, or maybe this didn't happen. I'm coming in here with something to prove. I want to show that I can do this. I want to play for my national team. I want to do this and have it be mine. For coaches, most of the coaches that have come into 3x3 that are established now, we're doing it for nothing. They're either doing it for free or just a little bit of travel or something like that on top of maybe another job that they were already doing. There's a few guys involved in this world that work, and then when it's time to go to 3x3, they're away for the weekend and they're using their time off. I love that about it because it gets to the heart of what we were talking about before. It's being competitive. It's wanting to be a part of something where this is still a little bit of undiscovered country, where you're blazing your own trail in your own community, and then you're connecting at these international events, and you're competing against these other places that are trying to figure this out and trying to put a strategy together of their own. We've done that here in Canada with Edmonton hosting multiple World Tour, Challenger, Women's Series, Quest. I mean, Edmonton's been the leader. In other areas of the country, we've had efforts. It hasn't been able to stabilize, I think, the same way that you see over in Europe and Asia, where you can count on every year in all these different markets events happening. But a big effort has been made, and a lot of people enjoy it. I love that about Mongolia as well, is they've identified this as this is our possible real shot, being at the plate, of hitting the ball out of the park and saying we're going to the Olympics. We're qualifying our teams to play at the Olympics. And our women's team played at the Tokyo Olympics because they qualified through the format that they had at that time. But now what we really want is we want to play at the Olympics because we earned the spot through competition. And we're at a stage now where we can compete to get there and not rely on maybe a system. I love that part of the game. I think it's so cool to hear those stories within the game of what led people to there and then what makes them successful while they're there, as opposed to it's just a stopover and something for me to do. I could go on, but I think that lends to the excitement of the sport and the importance that a lot of people put into it, is because it's generally in most cases a labor of love. And it's never been because I'll just do this because there's lots of money that's being put my way, or I'll get all this recognition. Tons of stuff doesn't get recognized in the sport, but it's still an Olympic level. It's becoming more and more professionalized, as we mentioned. And the people that are in it, like having to try and figure out how to make this work, and the amount of work that goes into it. A lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Very special. You have been a stalwart in it for a long, long time. I think it's now going on. Is it 9 years or 10 years you've been involved in 3x3?
9 years.
9 years. So, well, Steve, we're going to take a break right now, but I'd like you to stay for our last segment as well.
Love to.
Okay, you've been listening to a special 3x3 segment here on Hoop City with Paul Sir and Josh Fenwick. We'll be right back after these messages.
Sports 1440 is your front row seat to the wild world of sports. Local legends, national headlines, and everything in between. Your game, your station. This is Sports 1440. Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru, a world-class leader in environmental performance. Visit Subaru.ca.
The weather doesn't care about your shift or your schedule. Carhartt Rain Defender sweatshirts let you battle back against the ever-changing elements. Carhartt's durable, water-repellent technology lets light rain beat up and roll right off. Layer up and stay on the job longer without getting drenched. Get your Carhartt Rain Defender sweatshirts at all three of our Edmonton job site workwear locations.
Job site workwear, tough different jobs.
Hi, it's McKenna, the Kidney Foundation's Kid Ambassador, with a little Q&A.
McKenna, someone has a car to donate to the kidney car program, but they're in the country. How's that work?
We'll still take it. There's lots of cars in barns, in people's garages, even in fields we'd love to get as donations. Just give us some time to get to you.
So wherever your car is,
it can turn into a life-saving machine.
Visit kidneycar.ca.
Just think, Kevin Carius has been covering Edmonton sports since before TikTok Twitter, texting, and the Titanic. We may have made that last one up. Tech and Curious in the mornings on Sports 1440. Your game, your station. This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
We're going to wrap things up in our final segment today. I have Steve Sir with us, of course, the great Josh Fenwick. Josh, before we get into our discussion in the last segment, what's our poll saying today?
Yeah, so actually this was pretty divisive. I threw my vote in just a few minutes ago. And so the leading vote is Wembanyama. No votes for your guy Cooper Flagg.
It's okay.
No votes. And then split on Con Knipple and Anthony Edwards.
Interesting. Well, I think everybody made a great choice with Wemby. The fact that you wouldn't listen to me on Cooper, well, that's your problem, not mine. So, but it was it's a good question. This is a 10th anniversary right now, Steve, of someone who shoots the three like you do. That the shot that Steph Curry took, that this is the 10th anniversary of that shot, which I think it was 43 feet.
Something like that.
Yeah, right around there, 43 feet. Obviously, one of the most iconic calls in basketball history.
Yeah.
Which is insane because it's a regular season game.
100%. Iconic call, iconic shot. People talk often about the fact that Steph Curry has changed the way the game's played.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, definitely more impactful than any player of this generation in terms of altering the style of play and what people think about. But what do you think, Steve? Like a shot like that, you shoot from distance comfortably. The problem with it is now everybody wants to take threes, and the overall shooting is getting better. But what people don't understand is what players like yourself and, of course, Steph Curry have done to become the shooters that you've become. Just because it looks great doesn't mean it is great for everybody to be taking the threes that they're taking.
Sure, we're in the analytics era where more threes equal this, but it's been interesting to watch what versions teams at the NBA and the collegiate level come up with for that. There are some teams that have figured out that just shooting anything and everything is not the best strategy for them. It's been interesting to see the NBA this year, how well the Pistons have done and not shoot the three well at all. So there is still a world where it's not the be all end all that you're going to now just have a free for all shooting threes. There's still, I think, a respect if you use the Pistons as an example of what's best suits our team, while also having all the pundits and people around it saying, well, imagine if they just added even a little more shooting, what would that do for their team? As a shooter, it's interesting to watch because you see some guys that play at those levels that when they shoot, you're like, that's not going in. And I got to imagine I'm not the only one thinking that when you're watching it. There's still a respect for, like, if you're going to shoot it, like, there has to be a strong chance of making it. And there are times when you have an NBA game on and there's some guys shooting threes. There's no way that anybody
There's
thought.
a reason you're open.
Yeah, there's no way anyone thought that was going in. So some of the volume stuff is still something that I don't completely get, coming from an era where it was still very much about post touches and shot clock management. And again, like, I had the ability to shoot, but it was still very regulated even in college when we were playing faster than most teams. And if we had shots in transition, it was generally okay if we got them up. But it's nothing like what you'll see now of how there's layups being passed up and guys will be throwing it out for three. That never happened back then.
You averaged what, about 6 or 7 7 threes a game.
Um,
FGA's field goal attempts.
I think my senior year, I led the nation in threes per game, and I made 4 point something, and I think I was taking about 8 or 9.
8 or 9. Okay.
But even then, that's not that many.
Well, yeah. So how many would you take today if you were playing?
I've heard when I've talked to people that are involved with basketball in 5-on-5 now, they say like minimum you're probably taking 15 threes a game. So your percentage might be a little bit lower. Like I'm making 4.2, I think it was, and I'm shooting 9. So I'm right hovering around that 50%. So maybe I'm shooting 41 or 42%, but you're scoring more points.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to, I think, to say like if we're getting those amount of shots up, where we're getting this amount of points on the board for our team. If Steve's shooting this kind of percentage from behind the 3, there are some guys that are probably not shooting that from 2. So wouldn't we want more of this? Yeah.
I mean, the equivalent of shooting 41% is like 60% from 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you're the analytics add up on that. One of the other teams that I think has impacted the game is as you point out, the Pistons aren't winning on 3-pointers, but they're winning. SGA has popularized the mid-range game again.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City is more versatile, and again, pundits like to point out, well, they don't shoot the 3 ball that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they do a lot of other things really, really well. So I think there's a little bit more common sense coming back into basketball now, that there is a variety to the way that you can structure your team and build around your strengths, as opposed to everybody trying to play the cookie cutter style of hucking up as many threes as you can.
And I like that. That's what makes basketball fun, is having variety and having nuance. And if this is our team and these are our players and this is their skill set, well, what's going to be the best way for us to play to win? I always love that about the era that I grew up in with college basketball in particular, where you knew if you were playing Princeton, they played this way. Or if you knew if you were playing Wisconsin, they played this way. Or if you were going to UNLV, they played this way, because this is the way that these coaches knew how to coach, and this is how they recruited to their program.
At Syracuse,
very much so.
Playing a 2-3
You're
zone.
going to play the 2-3 zone. If you're playing a team that's just pressing the whole time, that's what makes it fun. It's cool to see that stuff coming back, where post presence and size and players who can play closer to the basket, how important that is, mixed with more thinking that the mid-range is valuable, because if a guy can hit these kind of shots, why wouldn't you want them taking it? And just more variety, guys that have some junk to their game, guys that are able to do some things. It makes it a more entertaining product to watch, and it just adds to the variety of what makes basketball special.
Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick. Our special guest is our community champion, Steve Sir. Okay, you've got the NCAA, where right now Duke's playing Virginia. Duke is just putting a beat down on a very good Virginia team. But as you go into the playoffs, or as March Madness is just around the corner, Steve, who are the teams that you're watching the most, that you favor, that are going to be in the thick of it when you get to the Final Four?
I feel like I've seen Kansas play more than anybody else, because they're just always on TV. But if they're healthy and Peterson's
decides to play,
if he wants to play basketball, then I think they'll be tough. I really love how when they're playing well, how they push the ball, how aggressive they are around the rim, how they defend. Last year we had it was such a good Final Four.
It really
was. And the games were so entertaining. They were so well played. If I'm not mistaken, those were the 4 1 seeds, if I'm remembering last year. And I'm curious if it'll play out again like that this year, where you have your top ranked, clear cut, best teams based on ranking playing at the end again, or are you going to see some upsets? I think it always comes down to who gets in what region and who could possibly play spoiler, or is just a bad matchup for whoever in that region. But what I'm most excited about is what we were talking about before we went on the air. It's the best 3 weeks in sports. When the tournaments get going, all the games are happening. If there's closer games, if there's blowouts, if there's whatever, and then looking forward to the matchups that you see down the road. It'll be really interesting to see how the conference tournaments plays out, if there's any surprises there, if some people get some unexpected bursts that knock maybe some people down to at-large bids, and then how it gets dispersed regionally and who's going to have to match up with who in order to make a Final Four run.
Absolutely. Teams. Duke, do you think they'll be in the Final Four?
I think they'll have a good shot. I mean,
Good
they're
shot.
awfully good. We were talking off the air how good Boozer is and how he makes other guys better.
Yep.
I'll be curious to see with BYU because of all the Debansa stuff. They just lost to Central Florida at home. They lost a crucial piece of their team that clearly has affected. And why wouldn't it? I mean,
why wouldn't it?
he was really good.
Really good.
But I'll be curious what that looks like. Arizona's super tough.
Yep.
Really, really tough. Houston's really tough. Iowa State's really tough. Michigan's tough. So you have what's interesting about this year is you have even the amount of teams that we just mentioned. That's more than 4. And at some point, those teams have to go head to head in the tournament and make the win to move on. Could make for some really good games. And there's also some really good players. Everybody's gone on about how strong the NBA draft is going to be this upcoming year, and those guys are featured heavily on some of these top teams. Should make for an awesome month.
It really will. Like last year, Rutgers had they had 2 draft picks, and they were
Awful. They were terrible.
Yeah, sub 500 team.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But this year, the top draft picks are all for very high profile winning programs.
Yeah,
that add credibility to the depth that people are talking about all the time. And I think that it is the most magical time of the year. And when you look at March Madness, both on the men's and women's side, leading into the NBA playoffs, my God, that's what's so great about it, is we're just now going to be hitting the ground running.
Sure.
So, well, Steve, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. This was really fun. It was great to reminisce about some of the games that you played in Edmonton that were such a part of the community. And I think that the community league, which is now morphed into Edmonton Youth Basketball Association, that still to me is the lifeblood of basketball in the community, because the emphasis is placed on community, and the emphasis is to find a level where all kids can play at. And I think that's really special. But thank you very much. And of course, all the very best of luck when you head back over to Mongolia with what's going to be a very busy year.
Thanks for having me.
Steve Sir, our community champion of the day, joining us here on Hoop City. With every week at this time, I remember our son Ben, who passed away, going on 3 years, and his friend David Finkelman, also taken too soon. And just encourage everyone, make sure that you value the people in your life that are so important to you, and that you treat others with kindness, as we never know what people are going through in their lives. We're not walking a mile in their shoes. Josh, it's been a great week. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, hey, happy to do it. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week already. Oh, actually, I guess virtually I'll be seeing you
next week. It'll be virtual, but then be back after that. But as always, Josh, appreciate all that you do. To everybody out there, thank you so much for watching or listening. Hope you have a great week, and we'll look forward to talking more hoops with you next weekend on Hoop City with Paul Sir.
Every lunchtime, hang with Low Tide. Weekdays from noon to 2 on Sports 1440. Low Tide and Declan Kruger gives you the deep dives, sharp analysis, and Edmonton sports talk done right. Your game, your station, Sports 1440. Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. Welcome to Uncommon. Visit Subaru.ca.
Hello. I'm Scott Rebrebe of Cupboards Express. I'm talking this way to announce the best sale of the year. It's our famous double promotion, where we offer not 1, but 2 of our regular promotions for February and March. 2 months of double the deals. You could pick free delivery and free dovetail drawers, or free handles and free upgrade to walnut. So many double discounts to choose from. Double. Cupboards Express.
Hi, it's McKenna, the Kidney Foundation's Kid Ambassador, with a little Q&A.
McKenna, does the kidney car program only take old, beaten up, non-driving cars?
Nope, we get donations of all kinds of cars. We make sure newer, high-end, and classic cars get to good homes. And the more the donated car is worth, the more the tax receipt will be.
So any car
can turn into a life-saving machine.
Visit kidneycar.ca.
For over 60 years, the folks at